Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Future of Work Leadership Conference hosted by the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce. I'm Carrie Pravitz, East King County Community and Government Relations Manager for the Port of Seattle. The Port is proud to support the Bellevue Chamber in today's presentation on sustainability and the economy. At the Port of Seattle, we serve practically every person and business in our state. Every Washington industry needs to move goods in and out of this market, or bring customers and salespeople to and from our community. That trade and travel creates a virtuous circle of economic activity. However, like many of you, we're experiencing the most sudden and severe drop in activity and revenue in our lifetime. We expect to see a 61% decline in airport activity this year, as well as lose the entire cruise season. There's no question that our economy is hurting. But we also have a key role to play in restarting our local economy. One way we're doing that is by moving forward with over 20 construction projects, resulting in a boost to the local economy and providing hundreds of jobs. The Port's growth and development is approached and executed with our commitment to the environment and to equity. The Port considers the cultural, economic, community, and environmental impacts of that growth as responsible stewards of the public's trust. The Port of Seattle targets its investments and programs to reduce the impacts of development and protect our natural resources. As environmental stewards, we embrace our responsibility to our citizens, to the livability of this region, and to the future. As we move towards our Century Agenda goal to be the greenest and most energy efficient port in North America, we're making significant progress in targeted areas. A few of those highlights are, in April, even amongst a global pandemic, the Port of Seattle Commission approved a contract to enable the Port to reach our 2030 goal to reduce carbon emissions by 50%, almost a decade early, through a 10-year supply contract for renewable natural gas. And as April was also the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, the Port put together a detailed history of environmental and sustainability milestones we achieved over the past 50 years. This is not a new area for us. If you'd like to see that impressive list, please visit our website at portseattle.org. Another win for the environment, the community, and the economy was last week when the Port of Seattle broke ground on Terminal 117 Park. This partnership with the Duwamish Valley communities to restore 14 acres of Superfund heavily polluted industrial sites back to natural habitat is the most significant habitat restoration on the Duwamish River in the past decade, and something we're very proud to be involved in. Thank you again for having me here today to say a few words about the Port and our commitment to building a resilient and environmentally sustainable economy in our region. I'd like to now hand things off to Joe Fain, President and CEO of the Bellevue Chamber, and he'll update us on what's been happening at the Chamber. Joe?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate everything that the Port of Seattle has been doing to support the Chamber and certainly the rest of the county during the pandemic. And we're really excited to see the changes that are coming to SeaTac and the waterfront to help protect travelers and to help protect the general public as we move forward in these weird times. Carrie's been a really irreplaceable force for good public policy in Bellevue for many years, and we are very grateful to have her as the Port of Seattle's representative here on the East Side. Thanks so much, Carrie. For many weeks now, the Chamber has been distributing personal protective equipment and supplies to businesses and nonprofits across the region. Recently, our team has been working alongside the city of Bellevue, providing masks to the residents of Bellevue. To date, our team has helped over 900 companies and over 15,000 residents acquire PPE out of our Bellevue Chamber location. We recently received another 40,000 masks from the King County Office of Emergency Management, and we're working on a second phase of distribution, free of charge to Eastside businesses and residents. If your business is still in need, please make sure you reach out to us and sign up for a request, or sign up and request supplies at bellevuechamber.org. Now, today is the 6th program in our summer series featuring breakout talents and leading technologists for our Future of Work Leadership Conference. And we are really pleased to have yet another fantastic speaker here today. If you haven't signed up for the remainder of our series, please click the link on your screen right now so that you won't miss our next program, which is on July 24th. And it features Microsoft's Corporate Vice President, Gurdeep Singh Paul, and he's going to give us a glimpse into the world of artificial intelligence, deep learning, and the future of automation. It is a must-see program. And I also don't want you to forget that posting on social media has a lot of great benefits as well. So if you are watching us here, make sure that you tag at Bellevue Chamber on your social media posts. We'll be monitoring Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn throughout the program, and we will randomly select one poster to win a free promotional opportunity for their organization or product during next week's webcast. So start posting by just using the link that popped up on your screen, and we'll see if we actually programmed that properly last night at 2 in the morning. I'd like to thank our sponsors who are generously supporting the series, starting with a company that has been one of the most visible faces of the pandemic response, at least in my neighborhood, and that, of course, is Amazon. They are our Future of Work Leadership Conference presenting sponsor and is a new and growing force in Bellevue and on the East Side. We also want to thank our major sponsors, AT&T, Microsoft, Puget Sound Energy, King County, the City of Bellevue, our corporate sponsors, Falco Salt and the Port of Seattle, and our associate sponsors, ACES Northwest Network and the University of Washington. And finally, I'd like to recognize our growing list of virtual conference table captains. We are very excited to welcome AR/VR Academy or Studio, GMI, Her Interactive, Accelerate, Seattle Children's, AAA of Washington, HDR, the Partners Group, and Sweeney Conrad. For more information about bringing your team the recognition and benefits of VIP access, please contact us. So before we get going, I want to again remind you that this is an interactive program that thrives on your participation. Today's presenter will be taking questions at the conclusion of his remarks, so please make sure that you are using the Q&A feature on your screen or the chat box to send in the questions that you want to pose to our great program speaker today. Now, I want to hand things over here for a quick introduction to one of the major contributors to this year's conference, Ari Yu. Ari has helped secure many of our great program speakers, including today's presenter. She is the chair of the Cascadia Blockchain Council and is a huge talent in the tech and entrepreneur space here in the Pacific Northwest. It is my pleasure to welcome Ari.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Joe. My name is Ari Yu, and I am the chair of the Cascadia Blockchain Council. Just want to give you a quick overview of the Blockchain Council with the WTIA. Started about 2 years ago because I saw, as I was traveling the world, that people were continuing to do what humans do, which is work in silos. We have our own organizations, our own different projects, our different community events that we're doing, but we forget to look across the space over there and reach out to our neighbors. And so the same thing was happening in the community of blockchain. And if you don't know about blockchain, it's an infrastructure emerging technology that helps provide privacy and security and transparency to transactions. So one of the things that we did was set up the Cascadia Blockchain Council, representing those companies that are really passionate about this emerging technology. And what we did was do a lot of awareness and education over the past couple of years with investors, policymakers, and innovators. And then recently, we actually started a blockchain working group where we partnered with the public sector. And so that's kicking off as we speak right now, where we're working with different departments out of the state of Washington. We're working with a lot of technologists in the Pacific Northwest, and we're creating those conversations to figure out how this technology can empower our government and also help the citizens that are in our Pacific Northwest area be more efficient and more connected together. And from there, I'd like to introduce Andy Kleitsch. So Andy Kleitsch is amazing, so I'm really excited about his presentation. A PNW native, Andy Kleitsch was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, beginning his entrepreneurship journey in the early 90s on 14.4K modem. Andy and his wife launched the weddingchannel.com, and that's now the not.com, and I've been hooked on startups ever since. Over the past 15 years, Andy has founded several tech companies in a variety of fields, as well as spending a few years in innovation at Amazon Payments developing a mobile wallet program. His expertise and excitement come from first mover businesses. His first mobile payments company came before the iPhone, and he is now working to bring to market the world's first molecular coffee. Andy enjoys boating around the Puget Sound with his family, as well as backcountry hiking. He and his wife continue to pay forward their startup experience by hosting BYOB, Bring Your Own Business Club for entrepreneurial students at the University of Washington, as well as Andy being on the board of mentors for the Master in Entrepreneurship program. Andy completed a Bachelor of Science in Advertising and Marketing from Emerson College. Please welcome Andy.
Thanks, Ari. Appreciate that. Thanks for the introduction. And I was looking at your sponsors, of everyone that's sponsoring this event today, and I realized I've almost worked at every single one of those companies. So spent some time at AT&T Wireless and Microsoft and Amazon, and of course doing a handful of startups in between, and currently doing another startup right now. It seems like I'll do a startup for a good stint, and then I go back to corporate America for a year or two, and then I'm back at it. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me, everyone. And I'm here to talk about sustainability and startups really today, and how we're approaching sustainability in our startup, and how other people out there today, if you're interested in, really creating your own company or starting your own company, or if you are in a large company today and you're just interested in how to be more sustainable, hopefully I'll touch on some of those points. But really, I figured it'd probably be best if I just told you my story, right? And how we got into the business we're in today and what we're doing, and then I can take questions. So we are Atomo Coffee, right? And we are a science and technology company. We are located down in Pike Place Market. We're on the stairs that lead down to the waterfront. We're right above the Zigzag Cafe. And in that location, we have about 10 people, and there's 2 of us that are not scientists, and the rest are scientists that are working on creating our molecular coffee, which I'll tell you all about. The idea for this company did not come from me, but this is one of the companies where I was really inspired to go find an idea. So I want to tell you kind of about that journey. As Ari mentioned, I do a lot of work with the University of Washington students, especially the entrepreneurship students. And for years, I've been out of the UW kind of working with students, but lately I just noticed a trend. It's like every year the students kept coming to me with these ideas that were making the world a better place. And I was really, after a few years, I realized, man, these students, it's not about making money for them. It's about trying to make the world a better place. And after you hear that for so many years, it finally started to sink into my brain, like, why am I not thinking that way? Why? Maybe I should make the world a better place. And I started thinking about, well, what could I do? Because I was in payments, I was doing some payments at Amazon. And I thought, I really don't have any ideas on how to make the world a better place. I have some desire, but I have no real ideas. And so that's when I actually did an exercise that I would recommend for everyone. I would recommend everyone do this exercise. Like if you want to start a company and do something but you have no ideas, go talk to other entrepreneur friends of yours and ask them this question, like, what do you wish you were working on? And what I found is that almost every entrepreneur out there has a secret side project that they wish they were working on. It is like, of course, like someone's running a company and they're like, I really wish I was making robots that could fight forest fires, so I had the most entertaining time really kind of interviewing other entrepreneurs and listening to their ideas and trying to find one that would match what I wanted, which was a company that would do something that was better for the environment. And finally, I ran across Jarrett Stopforth, and he really blew my mind with this idea. He said, and so Jarrett is really the idea. It was his idea, and he's spent 25 years in food. He worked at Chobani, Campbell's, McDonald's, Soylent, Kettle and Fire. He's got 25 years of just food innovation. And what he loves to do is break down ideas and build up products. So take a product, break it down, and completely rebuild it. And so when I met with him and asked him what he wanted to do, he says, well, I want to make coffee without the bean. And, it really blew my mind. Like, is that even possible? What is that? And is that something that's better for the environment? And he said, well, really his idea, and the reason why he wanted to initially make coffee without the bean is because he's really, disappointed in coffee. And many of you might be disappointed in coffee. In fact, coffee is one of these crazy products. So we started doing research, right? We found out people actually don't like coffee. 68% of people that drink coffee every day have to mask the bitter flavors with cream and sugar. So it's almost comical. It's like, how could this product even be successful? If 68% of the people that bought your product actually didn't like it and had to do something to it to make it better, it's like, how is that even a successful product? So people really love coffee. They're willing to put up with this bitter taste and mask it with cream and sugar. So Jared's like, look, I am tired of inconsistent coffee. I want coffee to be consistently great, and I want to hack that coffee and build it from the ground up and make it better. And so we started looking at coffee a bit more too. Well, 450 million cups of coffee are consumed a day in the United States, and that's growing by 3% a year. This market is huge, it's growing. And then I started doing some real work on what's the footprint of coffee? Is it sustainable? And found out that the coffee industry has actually known about this for at least a decade, that climate change is dramatically affecting where coffee can be grown. And about half of all coffee plantations will have to be moved in the next 30 years. And it received a ton of press just at the beginning of last year. So we saw that, everyone from Time Magazine to Scientific America and CNN and everyone covered the fact that coffee is in trouble. And just really quickly, what happens is when it's too hot, coffee grows too quickly. And when coffee grows too quickly, it doesn't have time to develop all the aromas and the flavors. And so what coffee farmers have to do is find cooler regions to grow coffee. So what they typically do, it's called up farming. So they take the hillside that's on their coffee plantation, they clear the forest up the hill, and they move the coffee plantation up the hill. And so our position overall is that we really love coffee. In fact, I drink a lot of coffee every day. So I don't have, we cherish coffee and we want coffee to continue to be grown. But what we are trying to avoid is the need for further deforestation. And so we're trying to create a solution where as the demand for coffee increases and as it becomes more difficult to grow, that we don't have to chop down further forest, that we have other options available for consumers that want a great tasting cup of coffee. And that's what we're providing. But our story, I don't want to jump to the end because our story doesn't end there. I mean, what we had to do first is see if we could actually do it. And we're still proving it today, and we always will be. But we actually went to Jarrett's garage. So this is, as every good startup story starts, this one starts in a garage. And so we went to Jarrett's garage where he had a little food lab set up in his garage where we could, experiment with ingredients and blend things. And this is us, blending all kinds of different coffee. And it took us, probably 6 months of research and understanding. And we started tweaking and playing with formulas and creating coffee in his garage coffee. And it probably took about 6 months before we said, this isn't good coffee, but it's actually kind of getting there. Like we could tell that there was a point in our mind where it flipped, where we're like, this is possible. For many months, we thought probably not possible. And then there was a moment where it flipped in our minds and we're like, this is actually possible. In fact, if we just get it a little bit better, we could go share this with people and see how they like it. And one of the breakthroughs that we had was that since we add everything to this coffee base, we created a cup of coffee without bitter compounds. So it just so happened that we didn't have any bitter compounds that day. And so we we made our coffee without any bitterness, and we gave it to Jarrett's wife, and she said, this is what coffee should taste like. And we said, maybe we're onto something here. And so we went to the University of Washington, and we started sharing our coffee with students. And we compared it against Starbucks. And so we would just have them a blind taste test, and we would give them 2 cups of coffee and say, which one do you like? And we were completely blown away that 70% liked our coffee. And I think it goes back to that first stat that you saw, that 68% of people actually put cream and sugar in their coffee. So when you give, a consumer on the street 2 cups of coffee, one that's Starbucks, which is typically a little bit more bitter, and then Atomo, which has very little or no bitterness in it, consumers tend to like the no bitter coffee. And so we found that consumers just time and time again were saying that they preferred Atomo. And so we thought, well, we're onto something here. So we did a Kickstarter campaign. We raised some funds, and Kickstarter, having our sustainable message at this point, was starting to get pretty well crafted. We're a better tasting cup of coffee. We're better for the environment, and we had that message that we conveyed to Kickstarter. And we did a campaign. We oversubscribed that campaign. We raised a round of funding from Horizons Ventures, which is involved in like Impossible Foods and Perfect Day. They basically have invested in meat without the cow, milk without the cow, eggs without the chicken, so they've been in all these, whiskey without the barrel, and now they're in coffee without the bean. And so we took the funding from that round, and we started really going deep on like, what is coffee? How do we recreate coffee from the ground up? And we found out that there's this big 5 that we call it. The aroma, the body, the mouthfeel, the flavor, the color, caffeine. And we really started looking at how many compounds are in coffee. There's over 800 compounds in a finished cup of coffee that you drink in the morning. So to understand this, like, how do we recreate coffee? What's in coffee? We also started partnering with the leading coffee experts around the world. And this is a picture of some of our partners in Zurich, Switzerland. This is the leading coffee center in the world that we've partnered with, and they have a lot of really specialized machines there that can measure the volatiles that come off of a cup of coffee. So you can see in this picture, there's in the middle, there's a bunch of LCGCs set up here. These collect the aromas that are coming off the top of coffee effectively, to see exactly what's inside those volatiles. So what we now do as a practice is we try to recreate coffee the best possible way we can. We look at the compounds that are in coffee. We've really identified that there's at least 28 compounds that you must have. And if you don't have those, you don't have coffee. Of course, like I said, there's hundreds and hundreds of compounds, but a lot of those you cannot perceive, and they're not really necessary. But there are at least 28 that are absolutely necessary. And so what we do, on a daily basis is screen materials, look at reacting materials, and are we matching coffee? And as everyone here knows, there's so many different types of coffee, right? There's the French roast coffee, the South Americans or the Ethiopians, and so the coffee comes from different regions, grown at different elevations. There's different types of coffee, Robusta, Arabica. So there's so much variability in coffee, yet there are some consistent qualities in coffee, right? Roasty, toasty, ashy, smoky. There's a lot of different kind of qualities that go across coffee. And the real trick to what we're doing, and what everyone asks us, is, what is in this thing? Is it a bunch of chemicals that are just poured out of a vat? And then that's absolutely not true. So that's actually how we started a little bit, like ordering chemicals on the internet and compounds and being like, hey, what is this? And we thought that maybe it was just like a recipe where you could just take purified compounds and put them together in a cup and spin it up and say, yeah, this is coffee. When in fact, that's actually doesn't work. And what we found is that we really have to take compounds that we find from upcycled plants. And we actually just take upcycled plants in general. So this is a bit of a kind of where our intellectual property comes in. And it's, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but let's just put it this way. There are compounds in coffee that you can also find in seeds, nuts, pits, stems, leaves, other ingredients that are being used in the food production industry. So you can imagine like a watermelon juicing facility is going to have a lot of watermelon seeds at the end that they typically just throw away or feed to cattle. And so what we found is we're looking at ingredients that are typically being thrown away, and are there compounds in those ingredients, or can we react those ingredients in a way to generate coffee compounds that we're looking for? And so that's been really a big part of our mission, is to look at waste streams from food commodities, agricultural products, can we react those? Can we generate compounds that we're looking for? And then can we add those to our brew and create the aroma, the body, the mouthfeel, the experience of coffee? And so that's what we do every day. And it's been a real challenge, but it is absolutely core to our sustainability message, is that we don't have to actually go out there and grow new crops to make coffee. We can take these existing products that are in place, repurpose them, and give farmers effectively another revenue stream. So what we found today is that we're doing it. You know, our coffee, over 95% of our coffee by weight is from upcycled plant material. So we're actually walking the talk. We're making the coffee from upcycled plants, and it's working. We're going to, disrupt every category of coffee. That is our plan. Our plan is we kind of say that we're the Tesla of coffee, and so our plan is to just give consumers an option. You can have conventional coffee, legacy coffee, sometimes we call it. Legacy coffee that is, and that's great. We all love it. But if you want to have another option, the electric car, if you will, of coffee, then we would and will provide coffee for every single category. A lot of our early, development was done in grounds. We really wanted to nail the ground experience. So here's, one of our scientists, Sarah. She has a PhD in coffee roasting, the molecular compounds that change during the coffee roasting process. That's her specialty. And so she's pouring, hot water over one of our pour overs right now. And then what we found was we would take our coffee, we would put it in the refrigerator and have it the next day, and it tastes great cold. And we really decided that, man, we have to, follow this. And so we really started working on a cold brew coffee that has all the same caffeine, the same taste, the same experience, what you would expect from coffee, but it's in a cold brew can. And cold brew is one of the fastest growing segments of coffee. Our story kind of just about coffee in general and about the sustainability message that we have and making a better cup that isn't bitter. This has really resonated with a lot of people. In fact, we've had CNBC came out to our office and spent 2 days in our office. And here's the anchorman here, and he actually was completely fooled on camera. He was trying 2 different cups of coffee, trying to figure out which one was ours, couldn't guess it. I think one of our highlights was when Trevor Noah on The Daily Show, roasted us, pun intended there, but he was like, coffee, anyway, he completely roasted us, which we thought was a hilarious highlight. So the media has been great. We've taken this new formula that we've created, and CNBC took it out to the streets of Seattle and, did a blind taste test once again. And we're consistently just finding that it's about 70% of people prefer Atomo over Starbucks or over other traditional coffee, just because we have that ability to tune down the bitterness and the acidity and things that people typically want to cover up in coffee. Our journey is really kind of just getting started right now. I mean, we have been at it for about 1.5 years. We've done the prototype effectively, and now we need to prove that we can actually grow coffee at scale, that we can build it for a price that makes sense, that we can take these upcycled ingredients from farmers and really scale that production, and that consumers will like it. And so that's what we're up to right now. We're actually going to be building a roastery down in, it looks like Soto area. So the roastery is coming in, and that's where we'll be manufacturing our coffee. So part of this discussion today was to talk about sustainability. Why did we choose this path, and what can other companies do to create a sustainable company? And so I just have a few kind of points in general. I think that the first one was, when I first wanted to start this business and have a sustainable focus, I thought that it would probably be a tax, that it would probably be a bit of an anchor that I would have to carry around, I'm trying to do something better for the planet, and that's probably going to cost me money or time or energy, or it's going to be some kind of negative to have a company that's better for the world. It was my thought. And I was completely wrong on that. In fact, it has been almost, our secret, everything, just having, of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about how it affects everything we do. My neighbor asked me yesterday, he goes, so what's it like trying to run a sustainable company? And I'm like, well, it's easy. It's just everything you do, you have to think about it. You know, every single decision you make, you have to take sustainability into consideration. And it's everything from like, how are we going to release our product? Is it going to be in a can? Is it going to be in a bottle? Is it going to be in this? Is it recyclable? Is it the most recyclable, sustainable option available? The food industry in general has a lot of little plastic cups that you try your experiments in. And we said, man, these plastic cups they don't ring true with our sustainable message. So we have to go get, glasses, little short glasses for our tastings. And it really just reflects every single decision we make in the company. So it is, always on our mind, and we're always considering sustainability in every choice we make. But the benefit that we get from that has been huge. So for like recruiting, having a sustainable message and make the world a better place message is dynamite in recruiting. We have just awesome candidates that want to come work for us. And just time over time, the people we hire say that they joined us because they want to have a job that is actually going to do something positive for the planet. And so having that be part of our message has been really a great benefit in trying to recruit great talent. We thought it might hurt our ability to raise money. It absolutely helped our ability to raise money by having a sustainable message. Sales for us, we actually find that there's a large group of corporations out there that also care about sustainability. I think you've probably heard Microsoft make statements about sustainability. Port of Seattle even, is making statements. Amazon, Starbucks even, there's a lot of companies out there that care about delivering sustainability as one of their pillars. And so what we found is other companies are coming to us saying, hey, we want to be more sustainable. How can you help us provide coffee for our employees that is a more sustainable cup of coffee? And so we're finding that our mission and our values are aligning with other companies that could be our potential customers of ours. And then the media is really latched on to the sustainable story. And especially, I think we had a little bit of good luck when we launched our company, because the month before we launched is when all the data came out around how coffee plants are, there's a likelihood that coffee will not be able to be grown where it is, and it's going to be moved, and half the coffee plants are going to be moved, an extinction of wild Arabica beans. And there was just a flood of information around how coffee's in trouble the month before we launched our company. And so when we came out with, hey, we've got a coffee without the bean, it's better for the planet, it was just perfect timing for us. And some of these things you just have to get lucky with. The other tip in sustainable that really kind of leads to a technology company like ours is that we have to let the technology lead us. We're trying to reinvent coffee. We're trying to, and many of you that are doing sustainable businesses might find that you're kind of blazing your own path, right? You're making your own trail. And so what we found is that we really had to say to ourselves, we have to let the technology lead us. We came out first saying that we wanted to create coffee grounds, and we will, and we are still working on them. But when we found out that our product tasted great as a cold brew, we had to acknowledge that. And we had to say, look, I think our plan is going to change right now to say, let's deliver our first coffee as cold in a can, nitro. And so we're letting the technology lead us. And I would recommend that for all the entrepreneurs out there that are trying to develop something new is sometimes you have to let the technology lead you. And right now, it's not to get boring. We're kind of a wild group. We really, I think, one of our investors actually put it to us best is we were trying to make a decision, and our investor said, don't get boring now. Why would you get boring now? So I think that, if you're out there trying to create a new company in the sustainable space, I think it's important to understand that, it is kind of the cutting edge of businesses, and not everyone's doing it. And you actually can create space for yourself by being a bit more assertive and aggressive, and don't get boring. And so I think we're clearly not trying to look like every other coffee company. We're not, when you look at Atomo, it's not like wood grain and beautiful. And, that's kind of, coffee owns that. We're not trying to own that. And so we're really trying to create our own space to give consumers a choice. And anyone here, if you have questions, just about entrepreneurship or sustainability or what have you, feel free to reach out to me at andy@atomocoffee.com. And I think I'll take a break and answer some questions. I see some questions. Hey.
It's coming in, and I've got a good list here, and I just want to encourage everybody that's watching to send your questions in using the chat feature or the Q&A tab on your screen. You and I were talking a little bit about things before the program started, and you know that I have yet to have my coffee this morning, which is certainly causing no shortage of haziness. Where do we get your product? Tell us where do we go to get our Atomo coffee hit?
Yeah, you can't. It's not available today. You have to actually come to our office, go into the laboratory where we make about 50 cups a day. So we're not in production scale right now. So we're actually just still proof of concept. We're actually in the process of putting together our roastery right now, where we can make thousands of cups a day. So for now, you have to come to our lab. That's the only option.
It sounds worthwhile. I'll be in the car in just a few minutes when we finish up here.
Yeah.
So you've talked about you had a number of things that were really interesting about your transition and how you embraced sort of the sustainable model. But one of the questions that I had for you was, this is not a it's literally a commodity market that you've entered. There are a lot of big players, many of whom are trying to kind of rise up on the value chain by and decommoditize their good by having things like direct source and tracking back to the plot of land where the beans were harvested, etc. Did you experience any pushback either from investors, from the market, from competitors, because this is a pretty radical departure from the traditional coffee industry?
Yeah, it really is. I think we were very worried that when we announced our company that the traditional coffee industry would really lash out against us and not embrace us. And that's definitely not our approach with traditional coffee, right? Like we look at artisan coffee and we love it. Like we consume a ton of coffee at our office, and we are fans of great coffee. So we were worried about how the coffee industry would embrace us. And it's actually just kind of blown us away. They're far more supportive than we ever could have imagined. And it's been great. I mean, I think that they understand that coffee is in trouble. They understand that climate change is affecting coffee. They want to keep coffee around. So we've had literally every major large coffee company either call us or come to our office, try our product. They're all saying, when is this going to be available? When can we have this? And so we've had barista. There's such a thing, you might not know this. There's barista championships. So, baristas will go to a world championship stage and compete against each other. And so we've had world champion baristas contact us saying that they want to use our product in championship, competitions. And it's really been, I'd say the industry as a whole, what we've learned is that the coffee industry is always kind of reinventing itself, and it's always trying new things. And they do care about the environment, especially the baristas and the people who consume coffee. So we found that we've had a very receptive audience.
I loved your advice to really, follow follow your product, follow where the technology takes you. And it kind of led me to another question here, which is, many times when starting a business, you really get defined by the errors or the failures that are part of that journey. And not always in a negative way. In many cases, it's very much a positive way about the lessons learned and how the product is improved because of those lessons. Can you share a little bit with us about some of the setbacks you've had so far that actually ended up kind of propelling you forward?
Yeah, I think that this cold brew path that we're on right now is a great example of that. One of the hardest, when you make a cup of coffee, you get that aroma bomb where the whole house can smell like a cup of coffee, and it's incredible, And so what we found is that experience of like this aroma bomb is really valuable. to consumers. And in fact, as you wake up in the morning and you make your cup of coffee, you want your house to smell like coffee. People just love it. It's part of the ritual. We talk a lot about like the ritual of coffee, and many of us have that ritual, whether it's a pour over or a drip coffee or an AeroPress or a Starbucks drive-through or whatever it is that you have as your ritual, a Keurig cup at your office, whatever that ritual is, we want to satisfy that ritual. And so we spend a lot of time working on grounds and on the aroma bomb and on other things like that that are important to have as part of your cup. And so as we would take those pour overs, we would do a pour over, we take the coffee, we put it in the fridge, and it would come out the next day and we'd try it and we're like, this is even better cold. You know, and it really, like you said, it was almost a failure in a way. Like how we're making hot coffee here, but how does our coffee taste so good cold? And so that's when we had to actually go back to our one of our lead investors, Selena Chow. She runs the Horizons Ventures out of Hong Kong, and like I mentioned, they're just a leading food tech investment company. And that's when she gave us that advice to follow the tech. And so we've really used that as kind of our mantra now in the office. That how do you make difficult decisions? Well, you just make the next logical progression. Follow the tech, take it where it's leading you. And we found, of course, we do a lot of market research in the background. Like, we're like, are you sure you want to make a cold brew? All right, well, it's the fastest growing market segment. The people who drink cold brew are the same people that care about sustainability and all these other messages that resonate well with our audience. And so we do a lot of market research in the background as well. But it really is, I'll just say one other thing about it. Like one of our quotes is that we like to say in our office is "Du bist du," and it's German for you be you, effectively you be you. And so we take a lot of that with us too. Like we really try to have each of us excel and have our own special power, if you will. Like all of us, everyone here on this call has like your own secret power, your own super strength. And so we really try to foster that with everyone in our office and try to have everyone bring that superpower to work every day. And so a lot of times that will lead us down paths that we hadn't considered, and we just try to be open to that.
Of the food industry, that your eyes probably open up to other industries. You probably start thinking about the life cycle, production cycle of, the lunch that gets delivered to the office. Through that process, have you come through anything like this? Is definitely the next part of the food sector that is ripe for disruption, either for convenience or for health or for sustainability and environmental reasons.
Yeah, it's a great question. Of course, I'm not going to give away any roadmaps discussions here, but I think what we can talk about is, let's just talk about what foods have the highest carbon footprint, which is pretty interesting. In fact, I don't know if you have a guess, but I'll spoil it for you. That's like the food that has the highest carbon footprint is chocolate. So chocolate is number one. And right behind chocolate is coffee. It's like a very close second. And then the third one, which is less than half of the impact of coffee, is palm oil. So a lot of people talk about like how bad palm oil is. And it's like, well, actually coffee is twice as bad as palm oil. And so what we have done is said, if our goal is to make the world a better place, make better products that people love in a more sustainable way, what products could we create? Now, those are the agricultural products that I described. Anything related to a cow, dairy, meat, those are all, number one. So it's coffee, I think, is like the fifth or sixth highest carbon footprint of anything you would consume as a human. But right at the top is, meat, dairy, cheese, lamb, and then it gets into chocolate, coffee, etc.
One of the things that every business tries to do is set up the metrics for success. And a lot of times those are found on your P&L, but with a venture like yours, definitely, trying to quantify the sustainability aspect beyond just, a splashy advertisement, but really knowing how much of a carbon reduction this cup of coffee is versus if you would go the traditional light. How are you developing those metrics? How are you, as you kind of plan out your supply chain, and as you ramp up production, do you have any sense of the real benefits from an environmental and sustainability perspective that your product will have over traditional?
Yeah, it's a great question. We always say that our coffee has to be, better than traditional coffee as far as sustainability metrics go. And so a real great way for us to do that, of course, is to take spent grains or spent seeds, waste products, agricultural waste products today, and upcycle them. And so and for us, when we look at how to give a product a second life, it is a really interesting conversation on how do you actually quantify that in a sustainable, how do you give that a number? Because this is a product that was actually going to be thrown away. And so, but we're taking it and giving it a second life. And so did we consume water to do that? Well, there was a lot of water that was used to consume a watermelon. And then you took the seed and you're throwing it away, and now we're going to take that seed and use it. So do we say there's water associated with growing this watermelon seed? Or are we actually saving, or do we have a positive now because instead of throwing that in the landfill, we're actually using it a second time? And so I think this whole industry around sustainability we're still understanding how to message that to consumers. We're still understanding how to capture that and quantify that as a company. And I think across the industry, that's really consistent. And so for us, it's about do no harm. That's another one of our, one of our mantras that we use is, make things, let's do no harm. We can't have, we can't be using ingredients that are depleting, resources or depleting the environment or causing deforestation. And so they can't have allergens. There's a long list of kind of requirements around our products. And so for us, we're constantly saying no to potential ingredients because we have to pick those ingredients that actually match our philosophy.
We've got a lot of questions coming in on the chat and the Q&A about upcycling and what does that really mean? Is it just a fancy word for recycling, or is it something deeper? And then when you're talking about, moving into production lines, you feel you're going to be capable of upcycling using, local produce, if you will, or local supply.
Yeah, we, a lot. So right now, our ingredients come primarily from California, and as we kind of look at expanding our capabilities and building out manufacturing facilities in the United States, our goal is to put our manufacturing facility as close as possible to the source ingredients, which will probably mean that we will ultimately have a large factory down in Nevada, California, Utah, somewhere around where where a lot of our product is being grown. And so, but for today with COVID, I'd say that, a lot of people ask, like, what are the impacts of COVID? And for us, we're making a pilot roastery where we're going to produce, just several thousands of cups a day. And I think our initially we were considering putting that down somewhere closer to source. But with COVID, that is one of the impacts that we've had to face, is that we actually need this roastery to be closer to home so we can, get to that roastery much easier. So we're putting that roastery in Sodo. One of the problems, or one of the challenges, I would say, with using upcycled ingredients is the state that they come in. So when you receive spent seeds or shells or husks, they come from a manufacturing process, like from a juicing, line. And so it's really taking those ingredients, being able to normalize them, clean them, get them in a state that you can use them is a challenge. And then once we receive those ingredients, we go through many, many steps of reacting them, thermally reacting them, other processing methods that we have that are all unique to our intellectual property on how we kind of coax them to deliver the compounds that are inside them that we know we can coax out by doing certain methods that will evoke coffee flavors and aromas and body and color, mouthfeel. And so it's a complicated process. There's no question that creating molecular coffee is a challenge, but we're just inspired to do it, and so that's we gladly accept the challenge. And the kind of the aha moment is that it can be done. We had a group of users in for a focus group from Texas yesterday, and it was amazing how our coffee was the #1 choice that they were all picking. And it was because of this kind of ability to create coffee in a new way that has less bitterness. It really kind of blows people's minds that it looks like coffee, tastes like coffee, but it doesn't have that punch in the face that coffee delivers. And a lot of people seem to like this idea that they can have a cup of coffee that doesn't punch you in the face. I saw one other question that came up on the thread around decaf coffee. And can we create decaf? And absolutely. In fact, we add caffeine, right, to our drink. And so there are 60 different varieties of plants out there that have caffeine in them. So we can source caffeine in any number of ways. And what we found is that we really can create the first true no-caf coffee that has 0 caffeine. We could create a cup of coffee for you that is like your bedtime coffee that you drink right before you go to bed to help you sleep. So there's a lot of kind of custom functions that we could put into a coffee beverage.
Ari is asking the question I think is on a lot of people's minds, and we've seen it pop up on the thread a few times. What % of Atomo Coffee comes from coffee?
0. Yeah, good question. Right, we source nothing from a coffee plant.
So, one of the things you were talking about earlier is how your sustainable message has resonated with your recruiting for staff and things like that. How has that, how is having a mission-centered organization translated into better retention and job satisfaction and, the quality of people that you're able to get? You talked a little bit about it, but wondering if you might be able to expand a bit more.
I think it's everything. I mean, for us, it's like what we found is a lot of the people we hire, they have other job opportunities, right? Like many of you guys out there hiring employees today, they have plenty of places they could go. So trying to find ways that we can stand out is really important. And what we found is that just the quality of people that we get with our mission, their willingness to maybe even, salary can be, something where they're willing to maybe work for less money because they're working on a more mission-driven company. They're willing to, put in those extra hours. They're willing to move to Seattle. We've had, employees move here for this mission. So I think that we find that we can compete well against other companies that are not mission-driven. So there's a lot of food companies out there that are not mission-driven for sustainability, and we compete really well against those companies, especially with, the kind of, I'm going to just say the younger generation of food scientists that are out there that really want to do something better for the environment. So I think that we found we thought maybe we only appealed to millennials or the Zoomers, and it turns out that that's not true. It turns out that there's actually a segment of consumers. So in every consumer segment, there's a group of those that care about the environment and make choices based on sustainability. So the baby boomers on down, every group has a segment of people that care about sustainability, care about the environment, and make purchase decisions based on their beliefs, which are around the environment. And so we found that we actually have an audience that goes broad against all categories of consumers, and it really helps us attract employees and retain those employees. And it's a secret. I think I understood, after about a year of running this business, how much of a benefit it was to be sustainable focused. We didn't understand it at the beginning. We thought it was just kind of something we had to do because it was our mission, and then we realized it was driving the company and the success of it.
Last question, just a general one for all those entrepreneurs out there that are or business owners that are trying to figure out how to make sustainability a part of their company's mission, a part of their company's brand. What's that key piece of advice that you'd have for those business owners, those entrepreneurs, about how to embrace that?
Well, I'll just tell you, we have So we launched a Kickstarter campaign, right? That was kind of how we announced our company. And we found kind of a rabid group of consumers that really that love coffee. We kind of have two big groups of consumers that like us. We have early adopters that are just early adopters in things in general, technology, what have you, who are also coffee lovers. So early adopters that love coffee, and green-minded individuals, sustainable-minded individuals that also love coffee. Like, we found that those are the two groups that really responded well to our message. And so now we have, several thousand people that are kind of part of our mailing list and following us and involved. And so we really started doing research on who are these people, what do they care about? And so we've worked with, a professor at the University of Washington to look at MRI data and to understand, like, where do they shop? What do they care about? What do they do? And we really started to invite them in and really ask them questions and understand. And we use that audience as our sounding board. So as we released one of our cans early on, and we have kind of this very pop art, retro futuristic, vibe for our brand right now. And we sent it out to our Kickstarter fans and said, hey, here's a new can design. What do you think? And they were like, where are the leaves? Where's the greenery? Where's the plants? So we use that audience as a sounding board to understand, like, have we strayed away from what our message is, or are we really nailing it? And so I would say, like, building up that audience of consumers that really relate to your product are your fanboys, if you will, and fangirls. Like, that's important. If you find that audience, if you start getting that reaction from consumers, then you're onto something. And then my recommendation would be to use that audience as a way to validate as you go that you're still walking the right path. And that's what we've been doing.
Andy Kleitsch with Atomo Molecular Coffee. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Our program hopefully will be back and in person next year at Microsoft headquarters in the middle of June, and we really hope that we can score ourselves a few cases of your coffee to share with our in-person attendees then.
Let's do it. I like that idea.
Great. Hey, thanks so much, Andy. Welcome. And yep. Again, great program here today. If you haven't registered for next week's program, please make sure that you do so now with the pop-up on your screen, or of course, anytime at bellevuechamber.org. And don't forget to tag us on social media at Bellevue Chamber for your opportunity to be featured in an upcoming webcast. I want to again thank our presenting sponsor, Amazon, our major sponsors, AT&T, Microsoft, Puget Sound Energy, King County, the city of Bellevue, for helping to make this great series possible. It is a real honor to be part of the Bellevue community, and it's just been a great city, a great city government to be working with from the business perspective, especially during this pandemic. And we are very grateful for their participation in this program. Now, next Thursday, the day before our next leadership conference program, the Bellevue Chamber is hosting our annual Mid-Year Economic Forecast Summit. So we hope that you'll join us as Washington Federal CEO Brent Beardall returns to provide an in-depth look at the current state of the local and national economy, and where he and WAFED's experts see the future of employment and sector growth. So please click that link that has just popped up on your screen now. It is a free event. It is always a packed event, and we hope that it will be the same here in the virtual era. As always, we've got one final thing to do before we break for the day. Amazon has provided an Echo Dot to raffle off each week, so let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see which of our lucky attendees are the big winner. This has had a little glitch in the past, so we'll let it fully done. Make sure we're fully through the whole process before we all right, there it is. Karen D, you are the big winner, and our staff will reach out to you and make sure that you are put in touch with that great Echo Dot. If you'd like a shot to win one next week on July 24th, get registered right away. Until then, as always, stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you next week. Thanks.